Michael Mayer doesn't play a position of serious need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he's the player that they need at 19. That and more on Locked On Bucs.
Your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you saw David just completely lose his mind, as well as the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app on your Roku and Amazon Fire Stick. And we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com, joined by Mr. David Harrison, writer over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. And of course, follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
One Bucs fan wants us to go all in on a franchise quarterback, so we're going to do that. Another one is I needs only. And Tom Fornelli of CBS Sports is back for more punishment after I roasted him following his last mock draft. In his most recent mock draft that dropped on Sunday, Fornelli has the Buccaneers taking Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer at number 19. And if you don't want the Buccaneers to take a tight end, you probably call him Michael Meyer because it's horrifying in the selection. Fornelli wrote, quote, I had Tampa take Anthony Richardson, which is why David roasted me, in my first mock, and they could. However, a part of me wonders if Tampa wouldn't prefer to start a rebuild following Tom Brady's retirement. This is a team that's a few moves away from being a serious contender for the number one pick next year. Whatever the case, Mayer is the biggest tight end in the class and would be useful to whatever quarterback Tampa opts to go with in 2023 or 2024. End quote. So some passive language here from Fornelli of CBS Sports. Words like could take Anthony Richardson, offering him the opportunity to escape in case they don't. Wouldn't prefer to start a rebuild, offering him the opportunity to escape from his words if they are not rebuilding. Listen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not rebuilding. Somebody tell Tom Fornelli that. Somebody tell everybody that does a mock draft. Because listen, when you're using this kind of language, when you're sitting here saying, part of me wonders if Tampa wouldn't want to do this, you're doing a predictive mock draft. So you're trying to put yourself in the shoes of the franchise and say, okay, what is the franchise looking to do? That's a hard thing to do. So give Tom Fornelli some credit here, because that's not an easy thing to do. You're not in Jason Licht's head. You're not in the meeting rooms. You're not in the phone calls, especially if you're Tom Fornelli. Maybe if you're Jeff Darlington of ESPN, then maybe, you know what I mean? But for the most part, doing a predictive, you're trying to use trends and you're trying to use things like that. And when you're on the national scene, it's really hard to know kind of what's going on the ground floor. So give credit where credit is due. But the Buccaneers are not looking for a rebuild. The Glazers do not want to fall back to the bottom of the NFC South. Now, do they understand the risks that are involved in starting a young quarterback? Absolutely. I'm sure that they do. I'm sure that's been explained. So is there a possibility that even though they don't want to, they're still going to fall to the bottom of the NFC South? Yes. But they're not going to, the Buccaneers, I say, are not going to make a move in the NFL draft based on, well, let's see what happens in 2024. No, they still want to win the NFC South in 2023. So if you're doing a mock draft, whether you're a fan, whether you're a media member, and you're wondering, what are the Buccaneers going to do? The Buccaneers are coming to win the NFC South, guys. Period. That is it. And if they believe Kyle Trask can get the job done for them, then that's what they're going to do. But also, this is smokescreen season. Remember this, okay? So all this Kyle Trask talk could be hiding their intentions to trade up for one of these 4 or 5 potential franchise quarterbacks that Daniel Jeremiah identified in his pre-combine conference call with the media. Those 5 being Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson are the 4. Then he also said he would throw Hendon Hooker potentially into that mix as well, leaving you up to 5. So maybe the Buccaneers actually want to go after one of those 4 or 5 quarterbacks, and they're not wanting everybody to get on that trail. My feeling, James, is that they actually do want to roll with Trask, but it doesn't necessarily exclude them from drafting quarterback later as a project, another project. So first round, probably not quarterback, depending on how the board falls. I don't hate Michael Mayer because he actually does improve the tight end room this year. I do hate Michael Mayer because I believe Cade Otton in 3 to 5 years could be a legitimate number 1 starting tight end, but that's more rebuild than Michael Mayer is. So Fernelli is frenetic. What are you saying here?
I like this pick a lot for a lot of different reasons. And obviously, it's not a corner. It's not an offensive lineman. It's not a safety. It's a position where when you think first round pick, especially for the Buccaneers, and if memory serves correctly, at number 19 specifically, tight end is probably the last thing you're thinking, right? But you take a look at Dave Canales coming out of Seattle, where they used a lot of tight ends. They had Noah Fant, who was involved. They had Big Montana, Will Disley. They had Colby Parkinson, guys that they utilized a lot. And you take a look at the kind of player that Michael Mayer is, and he is probably the closest thing you're going to find to a Gronk, in the next 5 or 6 years, right? He's not Travis Kelce, who really is. He's
Travis Kelce wasn't Travis Kelce coming out of Cincinnati. So
right. Well, and that's a great point. And he's probably not on the George Kittle level, but I think as a rookie, you're immediately looking at a guy who can impact games the same way Mark Andrews does, which is massive. And what is even let's put aside any potential smokescreen, right? Let's say the plan is Kyle Trask is starting at quarterback for the Buccaneers in 2023. We are going to see what we have in this kid. We are going to give him every in-game rep that he can take, barring any kind of injury. David, what is a young, inexperienced quarterback's best friend?
Tight end.
A sure-handed tight end that you can trust to dump the ball off to when your receivers are covered, when pressure is coming, and Michael Mayer fits that bill to a T. I have watched, as you guys know, my son is a huge Notre Dame fan, and I have watched numerous Notre Dame games where Michael Mayer just flat out takes over. So it may not be the sexiest pick. It may not be the one where it's like, we don't have Jamel Dean. We don't have Sean Murphy Bunting. We don't have Donovan Smith anymore. Why are you blowing a pick on a tight end? Because he's a game changer, flat out. And if Kyle Trask is your quarterback, he will absolutely make Kyle Trask a better quarterback in 2023. So if this is how things shake out, I would be pretty excited if I was a Buccaneers fan. Now, it is worth noting that some players that were still on the board when the Bucs selected Mayer in this mock draft were Brian Bresee, the defensive lineman out of Clemson, Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama, Osiris Torrance, the offensive lineman from Florida, Trenton Simpson, the linebacker from Clemson, and Cam Smith, the cornerback from South Carolina. But you take a look at all those guys. Yeah, those guys fill bigger positions of need. I don't think any of them are as good at their position as Michael Mayer is at being a tight end. He's the number 10 ranked prospect on a lot of big boards, but he's going to drop because he's a tight end. But I would actually be pretty excited if that was the pick.
Well, I think Osiris Torrance might be as good of a guard as Michael Mayer is as a tight end, but I get your point.
It's
outside of
really close.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Branch or on Trenton Simpson as a lot of other people are, and that's fine because I'm not in the draft room. But yeah, that's a lot of good prospects. I will tell you this: if you tell me that, I don't care who the quarterback is, but if you tell me the next Buccaneers quarterback in 2023 has Cade Otton and Cam Brate as their 1 and 2 tight ends, I honestly would put Cade Otton at number 1 and Cam Brate at number 2, and then Kelee as your kind of utility guy, third tight end, all that stuff. Fullback when you need him. If you told me that was your tight end room on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Gronk and Kelce and Kittle are your top 3, 1 being me and James and Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints are your top 3, I would put Otton, Brate, and Keefe at about a 6.5, maybe 7 potential if Cade Otton and Keefe take a second-year step like a lot of guys do. Probably 6 or 7. If you make it Michael Mayer and I guess Cade Otton and Cam Brate, or Cam Brate and Cade Otton, and then Keefe as a 4th guy. I mean, maybe Cam Brate, even if Cam Brate goes to Cade Otton and Keefe to your 2nd and 3rd, I'd take that from a 6.5 to a 7.5. I don't know that I expect 8 first year out of a tight end. You know what I mean? In the National Football League, it's a hard position to really translate to. The physicality is a lot different and all those things. The responsibilities change. To me, that's not enough on the needle to warrant a number one pick in my draft class. I was not number one overall, but number one in my draft class. Personally, that's just personally. And the second part of that is this is expected to be one of the top tight end classes in the NFL draft in recent memory. And so some people take advantage of that, get the top guy if you can. And I understand that thought process only if that is like your biggest area of need. To me, that's like if you're a tight end away from winning your division, tight end away from winning a Super Bowl, then you go after that guy. But in this situation for the Buccaneers, I almost look at it and say, where is this draft class thinnest at a position of need? And maybe I actually want to go there. I would almost look at safety or linebacker because those are two of the thinner position groups in this class from where I see it right now, and maybe target a guy there in one of those positions, even though, again, I'm not high on Trenton Simpson. So there's a lot of kind of like what is you can do, but 5 tight ends are probably going to go in the top 100. Maybe up to 8 are going to go in the top 150. And I think if you go from 1 being Michael Mayer or Dalton Kincaid to number 8 being any of these other guys, I don't think the drop-off is – I think the 1, 2, and 3 I think are pretty close. And then 4 through 8 are pretty close. And then the gap between 3 and 4 is fairly significant, but not massive. I don't know, man. I look at day 2 for tight end if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I can understand the reservation, and I'm with you on the tight end room. I was thinking 6, 6.5, and it would probably jump to a 7, 7.5 in that rookie season. I just think that at the end of the day, Mayer is going to be a very, very special talent in the NFL. So I get the concerns, I get the reservations, I get the depth of the class. But again, if you're looking at Michael Mayer as a guy that can become a Travis Kelce, a Rob Gronkowski, even a Mark Andrews. If his ceiling is Mark Andrews, that's a game changer. That is a game changer no matter who is under center. So again, I
like the guy.
I would like the guy pick, but I understand the reservations and wanting to focus elsewhere.
Yeah, I like the guy. I just don't know that I like the pick. Some mock drafts like to get fancy. Others like to just straight up look at and address immediate needs. I think you probably know which angle on that I lean on. We have one of the straight up variety coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. And today's episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season has come and gone. The All-Star break is over, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, among America's number one sportsbook, because NBA teams are about to make their sprint to the playoffs or to the NBA draft lottery and draft rooms. Because new customers, you get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Simply download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Love those same game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Thanks again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast first listen, first view every single day, and for listening in as I set James straight on his Michael Mayer take at number 19. Speaking of Michaels, Mike jumped into the email box to drop his fan mock draft on us and said in the email that it was his first attempt at a mock draft this season, or maybe ever, I'm not sure. Looking at team needs alone and who he thought in the first 3 rounds could for sure make a major difference right away. Some of that is a quote, some of that is paraphrase. But Mike, we appreciate you jumping into the email to the Gmail inbox. You are now officially entered into our super fantastic fun time NFL draft giveaway. That will be later on this year, obviously, April time frame. So James, let's run down this list real quick and then we'll break it down by day. First round, we got cornerback Joey Porter Jr. Second round, cornerback, going corners back-to-back, Kelee Ringo out of Georgia. Third round, we go Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. Then we've got 5th round all the way down there. That's a long time to wait for a draft pick, guys. But we've got 5th round, tackle Connor Galvin out of Baylor. Then we have another 5th round pick, guard Emil Ekiyor Jr., Emil Ekiyor Sr., a UCF standout back in the day. So some Florida ties there. Guard out of Alabama. Ronnie Bell, the wide receiver out of Michigan in round 6. Mahmoud Diabate, the linebacker out of Utah, also in round 6. Round 7, we've got Trey Tucker, wide receiver out of Cincy, and Jordan Howden, safety out of Minnesota. James, day 1, Joey Porter Jr., number 19 overall. What do you think?
I love the pick. We've actually started to talk about Joey Porter Jr. a little bit more on this show, and we've talked about how he has some deficiencies, but he is probably one of the 2 or 3 most NFL ready corners in this draft. And of course, everyone wants to tie him to the Steelers because of, the familial connection with his dad and the Steelers. But, in this, or at least in the mock draft that we were talking about in segment 1, they had the Steelers passing on Joey Porter Jr. for Devin Witherspoon. So it is possible that Porter slips down to the Bucs at 19, and I think that's a plug and play starter. Even with the deficiencies, they can certainly work around those as he gets coached up, gets brought up to speed, and kind of works on a few of the weaker parts of his game. So yeah, I'm already enjoying this mock draft on day 1.
Yeah, look, I don't hate Joey Porter. You know what I mean? He's got some issues in zone coverage that are gonna have to get worked out. But I mean, this coaching staff has already shown with guys like Jamel Dean that they know how to teach coverage looks. You know what I mean? Jamel Dean is night and day from his rookie season to what he is now. And then we'll roll right into day 2, and I'm gonna stick with the second round pick first and react, and then I'll let you come back for second and third, and then I'll wrap up with my third round pick thought. But going Kelee Ringo back to back, look, right off the cuff, it's kind of weird to me. It's kind of like getting an appetizer of I don't even know how to explain, like Caesar salad. Like I want a Caesar salad appetizer, and then for my first main course I want Caesar salad.
So you get a Caesar salad before you eat your chicken Caesar salad.
Chicken Caesar salad. Although the first round is really your main course. But anyway, but you know what? When I stop and think about this, right? Here's the thing: Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting are both free agents this offseason. You're not franchise tagging either one of them, which means you could lose both of them. You're probably losing at least one of them. I would like to see this team bring back Jamel Dean, but even if you bring back Jamel Dean, is there room for 2 more cornerbacks? Well, you could say, yeah, there is. Zion McCollum did not do great in his rookie season in coverage. He did okay in special teams, did not do great when he was asked to play defense. I'm getting some serious Ryan Smith vibes from Zion McCollum's rookie season. Long time still to go. I'm not saying that it's over with, right? But some Ryan Smith vibes in that rookie season. So if you bring back Porter, or if you bring in Porter, you bring in Kelee Ringo, you re-sign Jamel Dean, hopefully to not a team-friendly deal, but a manageable deal. Look, Carlton Davis, 2-3 seasons from now. So 23-24 is under contract. 2025 is a free agent again. If you have Jamel Dean under a 3 or 4 year contract, Joey Porter is under a 4 to 5 year contract, depending on what happens with his option. Kelee Ringo for a handful of years almost. And then Zion McCollum. By the time Carlton Davis's current contract comes up, you have flexibility and you have options, and you're not tied into having to pay a guy who may be going out there looking to break the bank. So I actually like the combination here once I really think about what could be happening this year and what could be happening next year, because, by the time we get to the NFL draft, obviously Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting are already going to have homes. So if one of them or if both of them leave, I like it even more. But even if one comes back, I actually still like the idea. And I think Kelee kind of fits better today skill-wise, but has more room to grow. But honestly, you give Todd Bowles kind of the option of okay, what coverage are we in? Which draft pick are we putting in the formation with these guys?
Yeah, and for some reason, the PFF grade for Kelee Ringo was pretty bad, and I don't know, maybe we're higher on Kelee Ringo than other people are. We've seen him mocked as high as the first round. I don't know how.
I care not for PFF's grades.
Yeah, well, we all know how I feel about the PFF grades, but getting Kelee Ringo at 50 and getting whatever, it was like a C- or a D or whatever, and they have him as like the number 75 prospect, and it's madness to me because, and I was kind of the same way as you. Like, I didn't like the doubling up of corners back to back at first, but then it's like, you know what? You're right. They could lose both Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting. And we've seen over the last 2 years that corners have just been riddled with injuries, and you're relying on practice squad guys to come up and play immediately. You're signing Richard Sherman off the street to come in and start 4 days later. And, I actually love the idea of snagging Kelee Ringo in the second round. And then the third round, a guy that you and I both love. We've talked about it numerous times. We're going to continue to talk about it, and that's Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. There's no pressure. If you draft Hendon Hooker, there is absolutely zero pressure on that guy to perform this season. This is still Kyle Trask's season. Hendon Hooker is coming off of a serious knee injury, but you saw exactly what he was able to do when he was on the field, and he could do some incredible things. Getting him to continue to rehab, get that knee healthy, and then compete for that starting job based on how Kyle Trask performs in 2023, it would be absolutely fantastic. So if the Bucs draft Michael Mayer in the first round, I will wear a Michael Mayer mask the night of the draft. If they draft Hendon Hooker, I will do cartwheels off camera so that you don't see me scream in agony when I pull a muscle in my back.
Right. Yeah, look, I'm on the Hendon Hooker train as well. I like Hendon Hooker a lot. I think he would be valued or considered or mocked, whatever you want to say, much higher if it wasn't for that injury. And I think that this is an opportune time for a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take advantage because, like you said, Kyle Trask is going to be your number one guy entering the season regardless. Hendon Hooker is a guy that you bring in, you want him to develop, you take care of his career on the front end, give him that year to really kind of get healthy, work with NFL trainers, NFL staff, and really just kind of get mended and tell him, look, man, 2024 preseason, that's your time to shine. That's your time to really show the NFL what you got. Don't even sweat this. It's a redshirt freshman season. Drew Lock comes in as not a aged veteran, but kind of your veteran quarterback presence who knows the system, knows the coach, helps Kyle Trask get on that level. And look, if Kyle Trask can't make it, you have a guy who at least knows the language, knows the system, and maybe the coach can kind of navigate him a little bit easier. If he does make it and he does do well, then you still have a young backup in Drew Lock, and now you have Hendon Hooker. And basically you got Hendon Hooker and Drew Lock next year battling out for the right to be the backup so that if, knock on wood, worst case scenario happens with your now starter embedded Kyle Trask, you have a young quarterback still available to make some moves. And look, worst case scenario, 3 years from now, you're on the cusp of making a Super Bowl push. You trade one of those valuable backups for some draft capital and you go get yourself a playmaker. I don't see anything wrong with it. Day 3, we got some offensive line. We got 2 wide receivers, which I know you have some feeling about. And we have 2 defensive positions of need, linebacker and Mahmoud Diabate out of Utah, at one point out of Florida, I think also at one point out of Auburn, maybe. Safety Jordan Howden, Minnesota Golden Gopher safety in the 7th round. I mean, look, it worked once. Why can't it work again?
Yeah, the biggest thing to me is, I like that offensive line was addressed with the 2 5th-round picks. I didn't love 2 wide receivers in a span of 3 picks, one in the 6th, one in the 7th. Now, I like Ronnie Bell and I like Trey Tucker. I don't know if I would have taken both of them because you got to figure with the back-to-back corners, it makes sense. Both of those guys are making your team, and they both could end up starting for your team. You're drafting 2 wide receivers. One of them is probably making the team. I don't think both of them are. I would have taken a shot on another position. Maybe that pans out, and then you bring in a couple of wide receivers as undrafted free agents like we saw out of Devin Tompkins, who made a name for himself, made the roster, was able to be a contributor. So outside of that, I mean, I like day 3, and I don't hate the 2 wide receivers. I just probably would have gone in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll give Mike credit. You go 2 wide receivers, at least you went with 2 different stylistic wide receivers. Yeah. You went with a ball security guy who can make plays after the catch, and you went with a guy that can take the top off of a defense, maybe has some special teams ability, maybe some backfield like Curtis Samuel type of stuff. Not Deebo Samuel, because Deebo is a lot stronger than I think a lot of people give him credit for, but more Curtis Samuel, more of an agile wide receiver / H-back type of guy. But Mike, overall, I mean, I think this is a good effort. Can't hate it. PFF gives it a C+. We give it an A for effort. I don't know. Maybe we're biased. We like our Locked On Bucs people coming in here and shining with the takes. So great effort from Mike. If you want to get involved in that, send us your mock drafts as well. Next, we're turning this Mock Draft Monday episode up a notch, not with a fan mock draft, but with a fan mock draft question that we turned into a Locked On Bucs mock draft. Get your drinks ready if you drink it. If you do, please do so responsibly because it's about to get crazy up in here on this episode of Locked On Bucs.
Wrapping things up here on a Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And We had a Twitter question from Dylan Fredeloso. I apologize if I butchered your last name.
That's how I would have said it.
But Dylan writes in about the Buccaneers draft, and he says, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trading up to the number 1 pick to draft Bryce Young? What do you think they would have to give up to get that number 1 spot? Dylan?
The state of Florida.
This is not an exact science, but I went to the old draft pick point value chart, and Chicago's number 1 pick this year is worth 3,000 points. The Buccaneers' entire 2023 draft is 1,535 points. So you have to do a lot of finagling. The 19th pick has a value of 875 points. So you have to come up with another 2,125. So you're looking at giving up a combination of a lot of different things. You could give up your first 2 days. If you give up your first 2 days worth of picks, you're still going to have to throw in picks for 2024 and 2025. And to me personally, it's a little rich for a guy that may or may not pan out to be a franchise quarterback. He might. I think he's the best quarterback of the class right now, has probably the highest upside, but you're giving away 3 years worth of picks to go up and get him. And David, then we decided, you know what? Let's do it. Let's give up as many picks as it takes to get the number 1 pick. So yeah, I'm gonna kick it over to you because things got wild. If you guys only saw the conversations that we were having before recording, it got interesting.
Yeah, I dig it. Shout out to you, Dylan. By the way, you're also entered into our NFL draft giveaway.
Yes.
So thank you for that. This is what I call the drunk mock, because if Jason Light makes this deal, it's gonna come on a very lubricated evening in Indianapolis this next week. I don't think it's happening. That's my way of saying I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Buccaneers are trading up for a quarterback, not to the number 1 spot, certainly. But you know what? Let's say it did happen. In this mock draft, we traded pick 19, pick 50 this year, first round pick and a second round pick next year, and a 2025 first round pick. So that's 3 1s, 2 2s to the Chicago Bears for the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. That was a Pro Football Focus approved trade, by the way. Listen, guys, we love all of you. If you're going to submit a mock draft to us, though, involving trades, it needs to be a trade that we can get to replicate on the draft simulator you use, and not by forcing it. So if we can't replicate the trade you created on the draft simulator you use without forcing the trade, then we're not going to be able to use it, guys. Okay? So this one was accepted by the Chicago Bears according to PFF's draft simulator. Now, in truth, because they know it's a quarterback, they're probably going to try to get like another third, or maybe they'll try to get 3 2s and 3 1s. But bottom line is you're giving up a whole lot of territory, right, for this. So with that number 1 overall pick, James, we agreed on and took Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, which PFF gave an A+ because PFF grades are perfect and nobody should ever argue with them ever again. That left us off the clock. Everybody left $1. Greg Allman went home for about 36 hours because the Buccaneers didn't draft again until pick number 82, where we got Illinois Fighting Illini safety Sidney Brown. James Yarcho approves. So does PFF. Then we sat on the board for a Greg Allman went home for about 36 hours, took himself the longest nap he's ever taken at the end of April, came back to the facility for pick 155, and we grabbed Tulane linebacker Dorian Williams. 20 picks later, we took East Carolina Swiss Army knife Keaton Mitchell. I almost called him Michelle. I don't know why. Keaton Mitchell. Pick 181 in the 6th round, we get Chandler Zavala out of North Carolina State. Luke Schoonmaker, the tight end out of Michigan, comes in to help out O'Keefe, backing up Cade Otton. Pick number 196. 7th round, we got a pair of guys, Muhammad Ibrahim, halfback out of Minnesota. And then with the 253rd pick in the NFL draft, somehow we got Trey Dean III out of Florida. Someone leaked a video of him doing something bad in this mock draft, because there is no way Trey Dean is lasting to the 253rd pick. But you know what? If you're going to put him there, we're going to take him. Yep. And we got A's all the way down the board, James. So you know what? Maybe Dylan's onto something here, guys.
He could be. This is the first A+ I've ever seen on a mock draft overall grade.
James,
ever.
You were talking about, we did 2 of these.
Yeah.
We did 2 of these mock drafts with this trade. Not this exact trade. The other trade, we actually traded a player. I'm not going to say who because I don't want Gators fans to get mad at me. But we made another, and we got an A again. Like, Dylan, stand up, take a bow, because your idea is getting us A mock drafts all night long.
Before we sign off on this, though, David, in your opinion,
I'm telling Jason about this in 48 hours in Indianapolis. I'm printing this and I'm showing this to him.
In your opinion, giving up 3 1s and 2 2s, and you come away with this draft class. So you get Bryce Young, then you're waiting 81 picks and you're getting Sidney Brown. Then you're waiting 73 picks and you're getting Dorian Williams. Then you come away with 2 running backs, a guard, a tight end, and a safety.
Yeah.
Is that worth giving up that draft capital in 2024 and 2025?
So here's what I'm going to say to answer that question. Okay, Bryce Young, I think, is the top quarterback in this class. So there's one thing. Sidney Brown is one of the better safeties in this class, and he's versatile. I don't think he gets out of the second round. This is PFF's number 58th overall player. According to current rankings, that'll change after the combine as we get through pro days. We got him at number 82. Dorian Williams is a guy that I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with, but he's got some mobility to him. He is a linebacker that can play off ball and he can move around the line of scrimmage. I think he needs to polish up a little bit more in tackling, but I think is more solid in pass coverage than a lot of rookies are going to be right around this projection. He's the number 97th overall player ranked by PFF. We got him at 155. Keaton Mitchell is listed as a halfback, but honestly, he's just a playmaker. Like, you need to get him in space, get him the ball, put some blockers in front of him, and let him work. Maybe some special teams value. We got him at 175. He's ranked 137. And then all the way down the board, we get guys. Luke Schoonmaker, I think, honestly, could be a 5th round guy. Dorian Williams, if he gets out of the 4th, I'll be surprised. Muhammad Ibrahim, the running back out of Minnesota, if he gets out of the 5th round, I'll be surprised. And Trey Dean is not getting out of the 5th round. So this board fell very fortunately to us. But the thing is, it fell twice very fortunately to us. Listen, if you could tell me that I would get this draft class, I would actually do it.
Wow.
I would actually do it. If you told me this draft class was coming to Tampa with this offensive coordinator, this defensive coordinator, and the depth that this team needs in these positions, I mean, Rachaad White, Muhammad Ibrahim, and Keyshawn Vaughn alone, I would be very happy with that running back stable. And then you have, depending on what happens with Leonard Fournette, Keaton Mitchell is, again, he's a Swiss Army knife. Figure out a way to use him or use him to manipulate the defense to your advantage, in other areas. Like I said, I really like Dorian Williams. Sidney Brown, I think, is incredibly talented and probably allows you to let Mike Edwards walk. You don't really have a true strong safety still, but I think you're good enough. Luke Schoonmaker, again, he's one of those 7 or 8 tight ends that could be a top 150 pick. I really like this draft class. So if mock drafts could be, if I could say that, yes, this would happen, I wouldn't hate it.
All right. Well, let's set up lunch with Jason for Wednesday this week when we're both going to be in Indianapolis, and
Tuesday. That's the best time for me.
I will only be there on Wednesday, sir. And it hurts my heart because I wanted to go and I wanted to talk to some offensive linemen, wanted to talk to Sydney's brother Chase.
Mm-hmm.
They're all available on Saturday when my son has a hockey tournament.
Don't have kids.
Don't let your kids play hockey. With that, we are out of here. We want to thank you all for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or review of the day. We want to thank Mike and we want to thank Dylan for sending in the mock draft and the question. Dylan, again, round of applause. You have created the best mock draft done on this show so far with your idea to trade up for Bryce Young. It won't happen, but it was fun to talk about and it was fun to experiment with. If you guys want to send in your mock drafts, your draft questions, any kind of questions, other topics that you want discussed, Of course, you can do so at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com or slide in the DMs on Twitter at LockedOnBucs. Check out David's work over at bucksgameday.com. Check out mine at bucksnation.com and follow everything on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at Yarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. And we thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.